3 centimeters below their boots. But water ice buried in frozen Martian soil is not the same as water. Not yet. To turn ice into water, you need heat. To make heat on Mars, you need power. And to make power on Mars, you need the one thing still sitting in crates in the cargo bay of Ares 1, a nuclear reactor, in pieces. Day 3 begins differently than Day 1 or Day 2. No uncertainty about what happens today. No questions about where to go or what to look for. Everyone on the crew of Ares 1 woke up this morning knowing exactly what today was. Today was the day they opened the cargo bay. Today was the day the real work begins. Commander Ryan Cole was already at the cargo bay doors at 5:08 in the morning, before breakfast, before the morning systems check, before anyone else was out of their bunk, just standing there, looking at the sealed doors, thinking about what was inside. The kilopower reactor, officially designated the Crusty Nuclear Fission System, was designed and built over 7 years by a team of 340 engineers at NASA and Los Alamos National Laboratory. It weighs 134 kilograms. It produces 10 kilowatts of power, continuously enough to run 3 average American homes for 10 years without interruption. On Mars, where every watt of power is the difference between survival and the alternative, 10 kilowatts is everything. It powers the water extraction system. It powers the oxygen generators. It powers the heating systems that keep the habitat modules from becoming frozen metal coffins in the Martian night. Without the reactor, they are dependent on solar panels and battery storage, which works until a dust storm covers every solar panel on the surface in a centimeter of iron oxide dust, which Mars does regularly. Without the reactor, they are one bad dust storm away from the dark. The cargo bay doors open at 6:47 in the morning. All 12 crew members present, in full EVA suits. Because the cargo bay opens to the Martian atmosphere minus 61 degrees Celsius this morning, and the crates inside have been in that temperature since landing. The doors separate slowly, hydraulic arms pulling the massive panels apart. Red Martian morning light flooding into the bay for the first time since Earth. And they're stacked in precise formation, secured with titanium strapping and impact-absorbing foam. 17 crates. Each one labeled, each one numbered, each one containing a piece of the most complex machine ever transported to another planet. Marcus Williams walks into the cargo bay first. He stops, looks at the 17 crates, and says nothing for a long moment. Then, right then, let's see what survived the trip. Crate number 1, the reactor core. Marcus cuts the titanium strap with a hydraulic cutter. The strap falls in slow motion to the cargo bay floor in the low gravity. He pulls the foam panel away. The reactor core sits in its cradle, a cylinder of enriched uranium-235 sealed inside multiple radiation containment layers, looking like nothing more than a very expensive, very heavy, very dangerous thermos flask. He runs his scanner across it, reads the display, reads it again, turns to the commander.
Core integrity nominal 0.
She survived! The commander nods once. That is the most important nod in the history of space exploration. But the reactor core is only one of 147 individual components that must be assembled into a working nuclear power system on Mars. In suits, with tools designed for laboratory conditions, not for thick pressurized gloves, and minus 60-degree temperatures, and fine iron oxide dust that gets into every moving part. The assembly manual is 412 pages long. It was written by engineers who assembled this reactor 17 times in a controlled environment in New Mexico. Not one of those engineers is on Mars right now. The closest one is 225 million kilometers away,
and 40 minutes away by radio. By 8:30 in the morning, the assembly has begun. Marcus leads.
Dr. Priya Sharma assists, her structural engineering expertise invaluable for the housing and mounting components. Dmitry Volkov, the nuclear systems engineer, is the most important person on Mars right now. He has assembled nuclear reactor components in 3 different countries under 3 different sets of conditions.
None of those conditions were anything like this.
He works in total silence. Every component handled with absolute care. Every connection checked and rechecked. Every seal verified. Because on a nuclear reactor, even on Earth, there is no margin for error. On Mars, where the nearest qualified repair team is 225 million kilometers away, the margin is even smaller than that. It does not exist at all. By 10:15, the first problem appears. Bolt number 7 alpha. A mounting bolt for the primary heat exchanger, one of the critical components that transfers heat from the reactor core to the power conversion system. It will not seat correctly. The threads engage 2 full rotations, then bind. Something shifted in the extreme cold of the Martian transit. Metal contracts in cold. 134 kilograms of reactor experiencing minus 150 degrees Celsius in deep space for 7 MITAUs. And one mounting thread contracted just enough to misalign by 0.3 millimeters. 0.3 millimeters. Less than the thickness of 3 sheets of paper. On a nuclear reactor that is everything. Marcus looks at the bolt. Looks at his tools. Looks at his gloves, thick pressurized EVA gloves, not designed for the kind of precision this problem requires. He looks at Dmitri. Dmitri looks at the bolt. Can we compensate? Marcus, I need to retap the thread. With these gloves. In this cold. Dmitri, how long? Marcus, as long as it takes. The retapping takes 2 hours and 19 minutes. 2 hours and 19 minutes of the most precise mechanical work ever performed on another planet. Marcus Williams kneeling on the Martian surface in a suit weighing 57 kilograms and gloves, designed for zero-gravity operations in minus 61 degree temperature, threading a tap through a misaligned bolt hole in a nuclear reactor component with hands that can barely feel the tool they are holding. The rest of the crew stands back and watches. Nobody offers advice. Nobody suggests alternatives. They just watch the best engineer any of them have ever known do the impossible in impossible conditions. At 12:34, the bolt seats. Clean, solid, correct. Marcus sits back on his heels in the Martian dust. His breathing audible through the suit communications is slow and deliberate. He does not celebrate. He picks up the next component. Lunch on Mars is eaten in shifts in the airlock suits partially removed to save time. Nobody suggests stopping the assembly for a proper meal break. The vacuum-sealed rations are consumed standing up, leaning against the cold metal airlock walls, suits still on below the waist. Dr. Amara Osai, the botanist, looks at her protein pack for a long moment, then looks at the scanner data still displayed on her wrist screen. 4.3% water ice. Confirmed. She thinks about what she could grow with water and light, and the right soil amendments, and the reactor-powered growth chambers she has been designing in her head for 3 years. Tomatoes. She could grow tomatoes. She puts that thought carefully away for another day. Today the reactor. The afternoon assembly moves faster. The bolt problem solved. The components begin to come together with the logic and precision they were designed for. The heat exchangers mount. The power conversion unit connects to the core housing. The Stirling engines, which convert heat directly to electricity, are installed and aligned. By 3:15 in the afternoon, the reactor is 80% assembled. Ang-Wai monitoring from the communications console sends a status update to Earth. Reactor assembly 80% complete. Bolt issue resolved. Ahead of timeline. He will not receive a response for 40 minutes. But he sends it anyway, because mission control on Earth needs to know. Because the people waiting for this news, the engineers who built this reactor, need to hear that the machine survived 225 million kilometers and is being assembled right now on the surface of Mars by human hands. At 4:47 in the afternoon, the final component is installed. The reactor is assembled. 134 kilograms of nuclear engineering, 147 individual components, assembled in 1 day on Mars by 3 people in suits in minus 61 degrees. Marcus Williams steps back and looks at it. The reactor stands on the Martian surface, a compact cylinder of metal and science, on its deployment legs, surrounded by the vast empty red desert in every direction. It looks small. Against Mars, everything looks small. But this machine, this particular machine, is about to change what Mars means for the humans who came here. The pre-startup checklist takes 40 minutes. Every system verified. Every connection confirmed, every safety parameter checked. Dmitry Volkov runs through the checklist with the same quiet focus he has applied to every nuclear system he has ever worked with. This is his 4th reactor startup. The first 3 were in a submarine in Murmansk, a research facility in Kazakhstan, and a test site in Nevada. This one is on Mars. He does not treat it any differently. That is exactly why he is here. At 5:33 in the afternoon, the uranium-235 begins its controlled fission reaction, neutrons splitting atoms, atoms releasing energy, energy becoming heat, heat becoming electricity. On Mars, for the first time in the history of the universe, a nuclear reactor is running on another planet. The power output begins to climb. 1 kilowatt, 3 kilowatts. The water extraction preheaters dormant since landing activate. The habitat module power connections waiting for this moment receive current. The oxygen generation backup system, which nobody wanted to think about needing, comes online. At 10 kilowatts, the reactor reaches operating power. Dmitri reads the output, reads it again, looks up at the Martian sky, butterscotch and vast and indifferent. Then for the first time anyone on the crew has seen Dmitry Volkov smiles. Just slightly. Just for a moment. In Russia, we had worse. The evening of day 3 is different from any evening before it. The common area of Aries 1 is brighter tonight, reactor power supplementing the solar battery reserves. The temperature inside the ship always maintained but always just barely is 2 degrees warmer than last night. Nobody says anything about it, but everyone notices. The vacuum-sealed rations taste exactly the same as they did yesterday and the day before. But tonight, for the first time since they left Earth, the crew of Aries 1 eats together, at the same time.
In the same room, not in shift, not in silo.
Not staring at the floor. Together. Because tonight they have something to sit around. Not just a screen with data on it. Something real, power, reliable, continuous, independent of how much dust falls on the solar panels. Power that will run for 10 years without interruption. Power that will heat the water extraction system. Power that will reach down 3 centimeters into the Martian soil and bring up what Mars has been holding there for 4 billion years. Water. Zhang Wei composes the evening transmission. He does not rewrite it 3 times tonight. It comes out right the first time. Reactor online. 10 kilowatts confirmed. Water extraction begins tomorrow. Day 3 complete. He sends it. Leans back in his chair. Looks at the ceiling of Aries 1. Thinks about his mother in Beijing. Thinks about the last conversation they had standing in an airport, her hands on his face, not wanting to let go. He was 31 years old, and she held his face like he was still 4. He has not told her yet about the water. He has not told her about the reactor. He wants to. But every word he sends to Earth takes 20 minutes to arrive. Every word she sends back takes 20 more. A conversation between Mars and Earth takes hours, sometimes days. He decides he will write her a proper letter tomorrow, when the water starts to flow. Outside, the Martian night settles over the surface as it has settled for 4 billion years. Cold, silent, absolute. But tonight, on one small patch of this ancient planet, a nuclear reactor pulses with quiet power. Warm, steady, alive. And 3 centimeters below the frozen surface, water ice feels for the first time in 4 billion years something like warmth. Tomorrow, they reach into the ground. Tomorrow, they take what Mars has been keeping. Tomorrow, water flows on Mars for the first time since the planet lost its oceans 3 billion years ago. Day 3 complete. The reactor is running. And tomorrow changes everything.